everybody, and welcome back to another video. And I still cannot believe what I have been reading over the past couple of days. The fact that Newcastle United have been bought by a consortium led by Saudi Arabia for £300 million, therefore making them the richest club in the entire world. I mean, what? I remember the times, particularly like in the 90s and the noughties when I was much younger, how good they used to be, particularly under the Sir Bobby Robson era when they had players like Alan Shearer, Les Ferdinand, David Ginola, Gary Speed, and amongst others as well, Shay Given too. You know, they had so many fantastic players, and I feel as though since the departure of Sir Bobby, Newcastle United have been on a bit of a downward spiral where they have sunk drastically due to the changes at the club, such as new ownerships, players going in, players coming out, etc. They had a real lack of investment, largely due to the stubborn owner that they had, where they just didn't have the funds to buy players, to invest in the youth team and, you know, the stadium and other things, so they just haven't had that money to do that. And they have been a sinking ship for a long time, where they've been in and out of the Premier League and they've had the average manager every now and again. Although I would make an exception for Rafa Benitez, I feel as though for the Newcastle United fans and the club in general, it's something that they deserve, in my humble opinion. And I know there'll be a lot of clubs going, why Newcastle, why not Everton, why not Leicester, why not Norwich, why not Burnley, why not Watford, etc. But I think with Newcastle, they were a big club. They have been a sleeping giant, as I've said, for a long time, and I think they need that revival. This could be that opportunity for them to do that. And with the exception of the odd few players in the Newcastle team right now, I think just a lot of things need to be shapen up in terms of going through that investment, bringing in new players and basically climbing the club back up again. And if there's one person I wouldn't want to be at this moment in time within Newcastle United, it's Steve Bruce, because he's been under so much criticism over the past few seasons and lack of motivation within the club to drive further, because I think with Newcastle, from their track record over the seasons, their ambition is almost to just survive in the Premier League. And most of the time they have, but in other times they haven't, where they haven't necessarily been just down to Steve Bruce, because they've had other managers since then. But I think it's something that they just need, that emotional drive, and I'm just not sure that Steve Bruce is the guy to do that for Newcastle. And who Newcastle will recruit as their new manager now in the aftermath of this takeover, I mean, big names have come out like Antonio Conte and Zinedine Zidane, while even Steven Gerrard has been tipped as well. But with this takeover, it will be shaped up from top to bottom, as we found out with Manchester City. But when you see a drastic takeover, a team change from sinking ship at the bottom of the sea to suddenly rising far above the surface, like Manchester City have proved, it's something that will need to be altered entirely, I would say. And a lot of that will be the manager and the players, but a lot of other things as well, such as the youth coming through and just the general perception of how the fans perceive Newcastle United. But I think when you think about where Newcastle United are aiming to achieve, you've got to realistically think about where they are now and how they're going to achieve what they want to achieve. Because at the moment, they're currently 19th in the Premier League and they need to survive this season. There's only one more transfer window coming up in January, and I think that's the time when they'll not necessarily buy a player from every single position and totally revamp the team altogether, but I think they will need to analyse and have a look what positions they will need to focus on and develop a lot more to survive this season, so then when it comes to the next season, they can start moving forward. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw players like Tanguy Ndombele, Raheem Sterling, Jesse Lingard, and maybe even someone like Edinson Cavani join Newcastle in the January transfer window. I mean, just the thought of what this could mean, not just for Newcastle United, but just generally the Premier League and English football. If you think about it, for all we know, in 10 years' time, when you have new players coming through on the same level as players like Mbappe and Haaland, they'll be thinking to themselves, it is my dream to play for Newcastle United, not Manchester United, not Liverpool, not Arsenal, not Chelsea, not Tottenham, not Barcelona, not Paris Saint-Germain, not Real Madrid, not AC Milan, not Inter Milan, Newcastle United. Let that sink in. And of course there's the moral dilemma about where the money's coming from and who's investing and, you know, the whole issue surrounding human rights within Saudi Arabia. But I'm trying to look at it from a footballing perspective. For Newcastle United, as a football club, it's fantastic. And to those who are fans and live there, or who are fans and don't live in Newcastle, I'm really happy for them. And I think if there's any club that I think deserves this investment, given the rubbish that they've gone through, I think it is Newcastle. But for everybody else, look scared now, because I think this is the rise of a sleeping giant coming through. I mean, as a United fan, I'm terrified, because I know how much competition there is against Manchester United now, given, you know, Liverpool and Man City, Chelsea, you know, those kind of teams. But I think in 10 years' time, Newcastle could be right up there. And for all we know, and it could likely happen, because I know Man City will follow suit in a similar kind of situation, Newcastle could do it to everybody. Not just Man City, Man United, or Liverpool or Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, or any other team in the Premier League, but every other team in the entire world. It's just astonishing that it's happened to fall under Newcastle. It's almost like winning the lottery. We could be seeing Newcastle win multiple Premier Leagues. We could see them win the Champions League, the FA Cup. The potential is going to be there. It's just how they execute it and the plan going forward for them and how they do that. And despite the potential that Newcastle United have now got in terms of this investment going forward, I think it just demonstrates for me what football has become. It's a clear sign that in order to become successful in football, you need to have deep pockets and a lot of cash in your bank account. Yes, you could say that Newcastle's drive in the future will be based on money, but at the moment, I think it's something that Newcastle fans deserve, because they haven't had any investment at all, really, over the past 15-20 years, and it's either make or break, where you almost either enjoy the ride or don't bother at all. That is what football has become. I mean, prior to Newcastle United's takeover, Manchester City were the Premier League's richest club, and I believe their owners had a net worth of roughly 23 billion, but Newcastle's is roughly 360 billion. But Manchester City have had their takeover, and while I would say that there have been moments where they've spent a ridiculous amount of money on a player that I don't think was even worth that. I mean, Jack Grealish is a prime example, right? But they have slowly progressed, rebuilt their team, and enhanced further competition within the Premier League. But yet, ironically, you could say that the issue of a takeover so significant as Manchester City and potentially Newcastle, it's almost like playing Monopoly in the Premier League, where it is about money and they can almost pick and choose as to who they want. I remember in that period with Manchester City when they bought players like Robinho and Emmanuel Adebayor and Kolo Touré and Carlos Tevez. Those kind of players really came onto the scene at Manchester City, and that was the beginning of that dynasty period that Manchester City had, particularly when they won the Premier League for the first time in that dramatic game when Sergio Aguero scored that last minute goal, where they have invested well into some of their players, but they have forked out a lot of money on players that aren't quite up there on the radar of top quality, and the standards are so much higher when money's involved in football. It's almost like Manchester City, and I think Newcastle will be as well, it is a place for players to really solidify their world-class status in football, but it can also act, in my opinion, as a sinkhole for players who aren't quite at that level. And all those players I just mentioned roughly came to an approximate price of £132 million within just a few years. When you think about £130 million or £100 million like for Jack Grealish, it was impossible to fork out that much money, but now it's a reality, and to a lot of football clubs it's just like doing this. £100 million done. Money is a contributing factor in football these days that has caused its downfall in fans' enjoyment of the game, but I think from a Newcastle perspective it's an opportunity, and that's what I think people need to understand in that respect as well, that it is about progression and potential based on things that have happened in the past where they haven't had the money to do it because of the owner, and now they've got new owners, they can fulfil that potential. Manchester City have ultimately been that, and I think Newcastle United will follow suit. I just think it's mind-blowing because Newcastle United have been a sleeping giant for decades. They've been in and out of relegation, they've had very little investment, and now, just like that, they are now the richest club in the world. It's just absolutely mental, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Newcastle United do now in terms of moving their club forward and what it means for the Premier League and what it means for English football and just football all over the world. So what do you think of the Newcastle takeover? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you did want to enjoy this video, then please hit that like button and subscribe for more, and have a notification bell tick so you're notified when I upload a new video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care, everybody.